Alright guys, so I'm a little bit late on this, but I still want to give my thoughts on Summer Kama. I did a little bit of testing around with her over on the JP version of the game because I'm not going to summon over on NA because, well, I already have like, Space Ishtar and Berserker Musashi. I don't really need a third really good arts farmer, but Summer Kama is pretty interesting because I know she's the most hype unit to come out of Summer 6, and that's probably because she's the best and most viable unit you can go for. Like, immediately she will be useful, but it's really weird. Unlike, say, Summer Ibuki next year, who, as soon as she comes out, she's basically the best arts farmer that you can be using. Like, she is ridiculously good when she launches. Summer Kama, on the other hand, is more like rivaling Space Ishtar for that spot. And, I'm not going to get too much into the debate of like, oh, do I think Space Ishtar is better? Do I think Summer Kama is better? I think they both excel in different areas, and I think they both do well in their own little niches. But one of the things that I am definitely noticing is that if you want to go for someone like Summer Kama, and by extension, even Space Ishtar, you're going to need extra copies of this unit, because as I was testing, there was a lot of footage I had to throw out where she was just not getting those clean clears, right? And it was getting really annoying because I'm like, mine is only NP1 level 100 and, almost maxed out. I think it's like 10, 9, 10, but still, you get the point. She can struggle a little bit at NP1 to really like get the damage and get the loops in, but obviously you can work around that with like certain CEs. You don't have to do the Black Grail setup at NP1. You could try to make up for NP gain loss by using something like Magical Girl of Sapphire, something along those lines. But let's just start getting right into this, starting off with her hits. And when you look at her hits, there's really nothing super extraordinary going on here. I mean, you've got double arts cards, double quick cards, and the arts are rocking 0.52% NP gain with 3 hits of pops on those hits, which is not the most insane thing, not the worst thing. Also, if you look at her NP hits, she's got 4 on an AoE NP, which is not the worst thing ever. It's definitely good enough to get the farming done. Her quick cards also fine enough. 4 hits can be kind of decent, I suppose, if you get some crits on them, but she's not going to be like Jack or Okita or anything that insane, and especially not with that 6.1% star gen stat. Now, I do want to go ahead and highlight that she does have a lot of passives, and these are some pretty strong ones. I mean, she's got very high debuff immunity, right, with that 20% being built in there, meaning you can whiff pretty much 1 out of 5 debuffs that come your way as long as they don't have like debuff success buffed rates or anything. You get a nice little buff to those quick cards to make them just that little bit better. You have the 3 Avenger passive skills where 1, you get a little bit of extra NP gain every single turn, which did come up sometimes when it came to farming if you're using like the new Summer 8 outfit that gives you like 20% NP, but it's split between 2 10% batteries. Sometimes that did come up. The Avenger passive itself, that where like a slight gust of wind hits your unit and you refund a ton of NP, also is very useful if you want to use her in more difficult content where she will be getting tagged. But one thing that I do really like is that if you do want to bring her to more difficult content, she's immune to all charms, so do take advantage of that. If you see that there's going to be an annoying buff, probably around Valentine's, let's be honest, that's when they like to roll out some of the charm enemies, bring this unit out and she will make your life a lot easier because you pretty much don't have to worry about that at all because she is just perma immune to being charmed. But let's start getting into some of these skills, starting off with skill 1. And like a lot of the other Summer 6 servants, a lot of these skills are just really good. I don't think any one of them are particularly broken, but I think they're just a strong set of skills, and you see that over here with skill 1 where she's got a 30% arts buff for 3 turns on a 6-turn cooldown. That also gives her double evasion for 3 turns on that same 6-turn cooldown. Very decent enough survivability if you want to bring her to more difficult content, although arts is not exactly hurting for more survivability. You have that with Castoria, who can give you the targetable invincibility, the solemn defense. You even have Tamamo, who can bring in the ability to drain the enemy's NP. Then we'll get Lady Avalon, who has the AoE invincibility skill. All of the art supports are generally really good at keeping their teammates alive, but this is really nice in case one of your, supports goes down, or you just need extra survivability because the boss is hitting you really hard. And a little bit of that arts buff is needed to kind of buff up her damage a little bit, buff up the NP gain of those arts cards, and it's just generically a very good skill. Now, skill 2 is where things get a little bit interesting, and it's a little deceptive over here of how good this actually is. For one, you guys know that I love it when art servants buff their NP damage, because I think arts is in a very good position to take advantage of Oberon, because, Castoria can already get you to 100% of your NP. That means you can use Black Grail, and Oberon loves being able to use Black Grail. So even more NP damage with this 20% over here for 3 turns is really good. It even stacks further on top of that. Plus, it's already allowing her between her first 2 skills alone to double buff herself, which is already very good. But What makes her so interesting is when you choose to use the charm on all enemies. You'll see in a couple different gameplays that sometimes I use it on turn 1 to kind of get that NP damage for all 3 turns, and sometimes I want to save it for the last node because, as a lot of you guys know, she has a special damage mod against charmed enemies, so sometimes you do want to actually save this for the last node, and this is why when I did the arts looping tier list and I was comparing all 3 of them, I believe it was around when Nitocris Ultra came out, I brought out the whole like Excel spreadsheet and everything. And she had the most diverse one because, while Space Ishtar really just has the whole thing of like, oh, does she actually start stacking her NP damage and does she get the arts buff? That's really as complicated as it gets. With Summer Kama, you have a lot of diversity, which I do like in this servant, because sometimes you might miss out on damage on nodes 1 and 2, but that's fine. Usually you should be able to clear those, and you can save this for the third wave where you did lose out on the NP damage, which you really want to slam the enemy because you want to get that guaranteed charm on the third node. Now, we move into her third skill. She has another way that she can kind of make up for this, and it's very similar to, say, Hokusai and how she functions. So first and foremost, it's the 50% battery, which is already going to be very good because if you're using her at NP1, you might need this 50% battery to make up for loss in NP that you're not making up because you're not getting really big overkill because you don't have those higher NP copies. So that can be very good. Also combos very nicely with 50% starting charge CEs. They're just very good. It's very hard to knock a 50% battery. But then she gets this on attack buff that every time she hits the enemy, she gives them this heartfelt blaze debuff for 3 turns. And then whenever she attacks the enemy, she gets like a little bit of extra damage from that heartfelt blaze stack. So you can effectively attack first, put this on the enemy, and get a little bit of extra damage back. Kind of like how Hokusai, before she attacks with her NP, you can attack with the arts cards to lower the enemy's defense to help her damage out a little bit, which again, I do like that they gave that to Summer Kama over here because it makes her pretty diverse. If you do choose to hold out on, say, the second skill for the third wave because you really need to hit some big chunky enemy, you could still kind of make up for that in farming nodes if you can find some of her face cards. And I do like the way that they've kind of built it. Again, it just makes her a very diverse farmer. You can kind of use her in a bit of different ways depending on what the node is requiring of you. And then finally there's her NP. This is just some real good stuff. Deals damage to all enemies, deals extra damage to charm status people, which you can put on them, which is very good. And then she reduces their defense by 20% for 3 turns, which is really only good in more difficult content where you know you're going to be able to hit the enemy numerous times with your NP, because in farming nodes, obviously you don't carry those debuffs with you. They, go away once the enemy is destroyed. But if you do want to bring her to more difficult content and you know you're going to be smacking the enemy waves repeatedly, this is very good. If you have numerous enemies that you're going to be firing numerous NPs against, you will get more and more damage as, the battle goes on, especially if, then you're also hitting them with like brave chains and also hitting them with normal attacks afterwards. You can really start to get a lot of damage going with this servant. And it's why I do really like Summer Kama, and it's why I understand why a lot of people would really like this servant, because not only is it Kama, and let's be frank, Kama is very, very hot, right? We all like Kama, but on the other hand, she also has a lot of utility when it comes to gameplay reasons, right? Like she can just be used in a lot of different ways. And if you missed out on someone like, say, I don't know, Space Ishtar or something, she can be kind of like a good replacement for that because she can do a lot of really, really good damage. Although sometimes you'll look at damage charts and they don't always give you a full picture of what she's capable of, because they show you how much damage she can do with her damage mod. That's why when I calced it way back when I was doing that whole comparison video with all the different arts farmers, it was like, okay, Kama can start out really low and she could be a little bit lower than, say, Space Ishtar, because, you're not going to be getting the charm on all 3 nodes. I wish she had like a refunding skill where, imagine this, like if she was able to, like, say, loop the charm or something on every node, that would be crazy. Like, let's say at the beginning of the turn she had a chance to charm all enemies. That would be nuts. Maybe we'll get that in like FGO's 10th anniversary when they're like, oh, we really want to bring this servant back in a big way. But I like that they didn't do something like that because it makes her fairly balanced amongst all the other really good farmers. I mean, she's still really good in the grand scope of the game, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to like Space Ishtar and Summer Kama, I think they have a nice compare and contrast between them, right? Because Summer Kama can far out damage her, but you can only really get that big damage on one turn, and you got to decide when you use it, because then you're also, if you're saving it for wave 3, you're not getting that NP damage, right? But then again, she has ways to make up for it with her third skill. In the same way, Space Ishtar will give you good, consistent damage as she stacks her own NP damage every single turn when she fires her NP, but there's a huge like kind of disparity between some Space Ishtars, right? If you get that arts buff when you pop the battery skill, or if you don't get that arts buff, because one, that can make her looping look a lot better because she's getting that little bit of extra NP gain, her NP is getting a little bit more damage, and that could just make her look a bit better, right? Because then you're getting more multiplicative buffs. But then if you're not getting it, then it can make her look a little bit worse. I know that sometimes when I use Space Ishtar, I'm like, this is one of the best units in the game, and then sometimes when she doesn't get the arts buff, I'm like, man, this unit really sucks. I do not like using this unit. But then again, you also got to understand that I am coming from the perspective looking at, say, Space Ishtar and Summer Kama over here from someone that has been using Summer Ibuki for like the last about year plus ish, like a little over a year since I think we got her last over on JP. So that is the unit I consider to be better than both of these two. I don't think she demeans their value. I've said it a couple of times, but it's like, it's just that like the other two are worth like $1.5 million, and then Ibuki is worth like $2.3 million, right? Like they didn't lose any value. It's just they put out something that's worth more, right? If that makes sense. And so I'm a little spoiled using Ibuki, right? She doesn't have to fight people neutrally. She's pretty much always super effective, and she's got like a very similar kit with like good power mods, you know, good battery, good damage, all that good stuff. So I have a little bit of a different take when it comes to these units, but to answer the question of the video, is she a must summon? Well, if you've already got like a really good farmer that you're using, then no, she's not a must summon. But if you don't have a good arts farmer, let's say you picked up Castoria on, say, the GSSR for Anniversary, you got her right at kind of the beginning of the Lost Belt 6 stuff when her banner was out. If you picked her up and you want to get a good arts farmer, then this is a good one to go ahead and go for. But just know you might struggle a little bit with her at NP1, and you might want to try to go fishing for, you know, NP2 copies, which thankfully there's not a whole lot of like really insane banners for the rest of the year. There's good units that will be coming out, but nothing like, oh, you gotta get this servant. The closest thing to that is going to be like Scotty coming back for Christmas, or maybe even both of the Koya and Skies coming back for New Year's, right? But with all that being said, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Have you been able to pull Summer Kama? I know that I've been away for a couple of days, but let me know if you were able to go ahead and snag a couple copies of her, and let me know if you got extra copies. Let me know if you were extra lucky. Sorry that the video wasn't out, so you guys had a catalyst, but your boy had some stuff that he had to attend to. But with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day, and I will catch you guys in the next one.